Well, what a strange coincidence. Here I was, working on some different concepts for education and how it's becoming absolutely destroyed by being replaced with indoctrination. And what should fall before me? A story in the New York Post. Teachers allegedly told to favor black students in racial equity training. Hello, and welcome to the Tea Party Hardy channel, where the party is just getting started. Current events looked at through a skeptical eye using science, history, and sometimes humor to explore the events of the day. Let's get down to business. In controversial implicit bias training, New York City's public school educators have been told to focus on black children over white ones. And one Jewish superintendent who described her family's Holocaust tragedies was scolded and humiliated, according to first-hand accounts. The story is really long. I would love to read the whole thing to you, but why? You have access to the story. It's on the New York Post. It's titled, Teachers Allegedly Told to Favor Black Students in Racial Equity Training. I highly recommend you look it up. A consultant hired by the City Department of Education told administrators at a workshop that racial equity means favoring black children, regardless of their socioeconomic status, sources said. If I had a poor white male student and a middle-class black boy, I would actually put my equitable strategies and interventions into that middle-class black boy, because over the course of his lifetime, he will have less access and less opportunities than that poor white boy. The consultant, Darnisa Almonte, is quoted as saying by those in the room, "That's what racial equity is," Almonte explained. Yeah. This woman who's in charge in New York City, if I had a poor white male student and I had a middle-class black boy. Now let's look at that phrase, black boy. If a white woman had said black boy in front of this black woman, how long do you think it would be before Miss Darnisa Almonte was tearing her to shreds for being a racist? Because Darnisa Almonte has already predetermined, or if you prefer the word prejudiced, this entire young man's future. That he will have less opportunities. And because over his lifetime, he will have less access and less opportunities than a poor white boy. How is that not prejudice again? How is that not bigotry again? She's already prejudged two people's lives. Not their circumstances they're in, their lives. Remembering that prejudice means to prejudge something. In order to prejudge something, you have to think. If you're not prejudging things, I know this may come as a surprise, you're not thinking. You prejudge your steps. You prejudge outcomes all the time if you're thinking. If you're not a prejudiced person, you're not thinking. When somebody anticipates what's going to happen, that is an example of prejudice. You have to think to anticipate. You have to think ahead. The scientific method is to create a hypothesis, which is to anticipate something, and then you do the experiment and find out if it's true. So scientists are prejudiced if they're using the scientific method because they have a hypothesis. The hypothesis is prejudiced. It's the scientific method. However, if you do the experiment and the results come out flat over and over and over and over again, and you are never getting your hypothesis, and you just refuse to accept that, well, now that's called bigotry. Because prejudice is the result of thinking about what's going to happen. Bigotry is the refusal to accept the new information that comes your way. Darnisa Almonte, if I had a poor white male student and I have a middle-class black boy, I would actually put my equitable strategies and interventions into that middle-class black boy because over the course of his lifetime, he will have less access and less opportunities than that poor white boy. This is a woman in charge of educating adults on how to educate children. Look at what she's calling out. And she got promoted. If you think that racial quotas and affirmative action has had any positive benefits, you've got to take a look at what's happening in the education system. They're all being erased, if they ever existed at all. As they said in the Supreme Court so long ago, the only way to stop racist is to quit being racist. The only way to quit having people judge everybody by the color of their skin is to stop judging everybody by the color of their skin. And we didn't choose that path. And this is what it's got us. You've got people getting promoted that have some really mind-bending, twisted perceptions. They're completely prejudiced, as exampled. They're as bigoted as you can get, as exampled. Mona Davids is the president of the New York City Parents Union. She was appalled. It's completely absurd. They want to treat black students as victims and punish white students? That defeats the purpose of what bias awareness training should be, said Davids, who's black. If you think this is limited to New York, oh no. This is in education classrooms throughout the country now. Training phrases like replacement thinking and the disdain for whiteness. This is what affirmative action has brought to us. When you promote people who aren't qualified, when you don't curb people who are acting inappropriately because of the color of their skin, they grow more powerful, and then they say, let's take over the education system and wipe it out. And this is what they're doing. Replacement thinking. Despite Carranza's contention that those who complain about the training need it the most. I'm sorry, did Carranza say that or did Mao say that? Did Carranza say that or did Karl Marx say that? Did Carranza say that or did Stalin say that? In her training session in February 2019, consultant Amante told DOE higher-ups to face the fact that the issue of race, power, and privilege will rise to the forefront and shake things up. Through this process of moving towards racial equity, we will have to pull layers back on who we are. You are going to have to talk about your power and your privilege. I'm going to do that again. Through this process of moving towards racial equity, we will have to pull layers back on who we are. You are going to have to talk about your power and your privilege, says the woman in charge who has black skin. Says the woman in charge who has black skin. You will need to name your privilege. Amante, who has black skin and is in charge, is quoted as saying, she didn't pull enough layers back to see who she frickin' is. She also warned that jobs in the new climate may be shaking. You're going to have to acknowledge that you will have to step back. You might fear losing your job. When we get to true racial equity, you will have to define new institutional policies. This may feel dangerous because you are going to have to talk about race daily. I hope and I pray that one day my children will grow up and live in a world where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but instead on the content of their character. Well, if that were to happen, then we're not going to be talking about race daily, are we? There's nothing wrong with talking about issues that are political by people in the education field, especially at a time when little is left unpoliticized. But there is everything wrong with those people using their power to impose their views and beliefs instead of sharing them. It's most important for all citizens to be able to discuss things without an expectation of belief from their listeners. If you can give vigorous support to convince them, then you're using your mind and you're trying to persuade through argument. But if the other person doesn't concede, that doesn't give the speaker the right to attack them because they didn't convince them. It doesn't give them the right in any shape or form to now alter their grades or their pay or termination. And that's what that woman said she's going to do. Your jobs are on the line, baby, if you don't believe what I'm telling you to believe. That's not sharing. That's demanding. That's indoctrination. It's redoing the thinking. It's indoctrination. It's not education. Education is simply sharing the information. One person has it, and they provide it to the next person who doesn't have it. That's education. No morals involved at all. You're taking the information and you're giving it. Indoctrination is when you demand that the other person believe you. This woman is 100% indoctrinator. I watched an interview with a professor who said that diversity is our strength, going back to the beginning of America, I say this. Anyone who thinks diversity is a strength is going to discover how weak it is when they match it up against unity. United we stand, divided we fall. Diversity and unity are opposites, and only one of them unites. What's going on in New York's education system, what's going on in Los Angeles' education system, Seattle's, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you live. What's going on in the education system, people need to unite and come together. And by coming together, that means they've had an agreement of social standards. This tearing apart by race is ugly. It's stupid. And it should have never been allowed to grow to this level. The NFL got woke, got broke. They woke up for reals, and they got rid of it. They had a much better season last year. ESPN got woke from their wokeness, and they're going to try and recover. They're just now admitting, shoving all this politics down people's throat instead of talking about a football game or a baseball game, it really didn't pan out well. No, it didn't. Doing that to trapped little children in K through 12 is cruel. Doing it to adults is foolish. Because the fools are in the room who don't stand up and unite and say, I've had enough of your diversity. It's time to come together and quit judging people by the freaking color of their skin and stop letting people off the hook because of color of their skin. We've got to come together. We can come together. We've done it before. Coming together doesn't mean we all believe the same thing, but it does mean we all stand for the same thing. And that thing that we stand for is taking information from here and moving it over there. We do not stand for saying, you have to believe this, or I will punish you. That is not what a free country does to their citizens. You can't be a free country and demanding that they have your beliefs. You're more than welcome in a free society to argue the reasons why they should believe you. And then hopefully they'll join you. But once you start demanding it and start backing that up with punishment and threatening people's jobs and threatening people's grades, you are on the losing end of a free society. We hope you enjoyed the content, and if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, come on back anytime. You're always welcome here as part of the family, and we'll see you in the future.